right, and we are live. Welcome everybody to the first movie of the week show that we're doing. That I'm doing at least today. We have two special guests. We have Jack in the green hoodie. We have Nick in the black t-shirt. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Great.
How you doing, Labruski?
I'm doing all right. I just woke up not too long ago.
Us
If I'm
too.
being honest, I rolled out of bed about 15 minutes ago, and I said, "Oh shit, I got a show to do." So I got my coffee here. Look at this mug. Isn't this cool?
Who you working with here?
Hello, vendors.
It's all the Marvel characters.
Lovely.
We got James in the chat here. James, how are you? Have you seen Heretic? That's what we're going to talk about today. Nick, did you hear what happened with me with seeing Heretic?
I feel like
that's what we should start with because I've seen the video. He hasn't.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
dive into that big time.
Yeah, so I ended up leaving early.
I heard.
Not because the film was bad or I did not enjoy it. Truth, I really was digging it. Like I was like, this movie's pretty good. I like, the concepts around it and whatnot, and the acting, Hugh Grant, all it was all good. But I had this thing with box cutters, or box openers, whatever they're called, the knives.
Box cutter, you're right.
Where I don't know why they just freak me out. I think it stems from the Breaking Bad. Have you seen Breaking Bad?
Yeah.
The scene with Gus, who does that to one of his employees or whatever, that freaks me out. So I don't know. I think maybe that's where it stems from. But I've always had this thing with box cutters where I just don't like them. And so he uses the box cutter knife. But not only that, he digs into her bicep, which on its own just grosses me the hell out.
It was a gross scene. Yeah.
There's this scene in Evil Dead Rise. Have you guys seen that?
I have not.
Evil Dead movie. It's good. You should check it out. Super. That's a gross film too.
Okay.
But there's a scene where somebody gets their bicep just stabbed with a kitchen knife. Super gross. And so I don't know, anything with like the bicep freaks me out for some reason too. So it was like a perfect combination. And I was like, oh my God, this is disgusting. And I start to fixate on it. And then he says something about, he's digging out the whatever it's called, the birth control thing. He's like, oh, that's just a vein. I'm like, oh, I was like, fuck, that's gross. So yeah, I don't know. I got super grossed out and I said, I gotta leave. I gotta get some fresh air. My body, I started to overheat. I was like, uh-oh, what's happening? So yeah, I left early. So I don't really know the ending. Jack kind of told me what happens, but I haven't like looked it up or anything. So you guys, I really can't talk about the film as a whole because I haven't seen the film as a whole. But
what we can do, without coming full circle, because of course, a lot of stuff thematically with, just chatting about like iterations, and obviously there's like the whole concept of like the truest religion that they're trying to paint through the entire film. But if you want, we could talk from just beginning to like what you saw, you know what I mean? And then like from there, like we can end of it. But yeah, because obviously a three-way conversation is a lot more, that'd be more fun to facilitate anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, we could do that. I am curious what your guys' thoughts are on the ending though, and what you guys think of it thematically, if you will. So we can dive into that. So, but I guess we can just start out by talking about the film in order. It kind of starts out, at least for me, pretty slow. Like for the first half hour, it's definitely a slow burn.
Yeah.
And I think the reason being is it's really just all dialogue heavy. I think this
as well.
That?
It's all like it all takes place in the house.
Yeah, yeah. For the most part, I mean, the film doesn't really have an amazing hook. It's just the two of them talking on the bench about like porn or whatever they were talking about. So it's definitely kind of a slow burn, at least for the first, I would say like half an hour, up until they get into like the back part of the house with like the church or his mock church area, whatever you want to call it.
Mm.
Then for me, it kind of starts to pick up.
Yeah,
that's where it picks up for me. But even, just because it's slow burn doesn't mean it wasn't like working for me. Like I was engaged. I think that the writing's pretty good. And like I said, I like the ideas around, I guess, religion that are presented in that first half hour of the film. We see the two characters. I can't remember their names, but one of them, it's kind of teased that maybe she's on the fence. Like, what does she believe almost, and the other one's like just all in on the Mormon religion. Where she feels a little like childish, even though I don't know how old she is. I'm sure she's like 16 or something in the film, but even that, she feels a little immature for her age. Like she's really just been kind of sipping the Kool-Aid of this religion, what she's grown up around. And so it's interesting to see them kind of contrast. And the other one I got to get their names again.
Yeah, Sister Barnes is Sophie Thatcher's character. I can't remember the one you just talked about, the goody two shoe ones. I cannot remember her character name.
Yeah, what was it? Sister Barnes.
Sister Barnes was the girl with the birth control. That's Sophie Thatcher.
Okay, let's see.
Not to mention too, there's only like 4 actors in this movie.
Yeah, that's true. So the other one's Sister Baxton.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Hugh Grant's character is Mr. Reed. So I guess let's talk a little bit about him.
Yeah, I think
He was great.
He was really good. I guess there's a thing with I feel like I haven't seen Hugh Grant in a lot of other movies, honestly. Like, I guess he's kind of known as like a rom-com guy, like an actor.
Paddington 2, he was really good in that.
I haven't seen Paddington 2. I'll have to try to watch that at some point. But yeah, I don't know. I guess there's kind of the joke that he plays the same character in every single movie. So I don't know. Obviously, I don't think that's the case with this film. I think it's hopefully a different character. But
yeah, for sure.
I thought he did a really good job. Where he's a little likable at times too. Where it's
very like charismatic.
Pretty charismatic,
Really
but he does a good job where it's like, oh, there's still something behind the curtain that he's not showing you. Like there's something there that's almost a little sinister. So yeah, no, I think he does a really good job portraying that character and kind of setting the mood for the rest of the film. All right, we got Sector 2815. What's up? That's a Green Lantern. That's cool. I like that. So yeah, I don't know. I guess what are your guys' thoughts on the first act of the film?
You got it, really.
Yeah, like you said, a little slow burn. They do a good job. Kind of. We kind of like when we first came out, we were like, one is kind of like book smart, one is kind of like street smart, like Sophie.
Yeah. And
I don't want to get into the ending yet, but was it Sister Paxton?
She's the one that's book smart.
Yeah. So she kind of turns at the end. She actually like becomes pretty cool at the end. But they do a cool job kind of introducing them, and then they just go right into the house, really.
Yeah.
And it kind of just goes from there. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about the first part?
Man, I mean, like
a little slow burn, like you said, though.
Yeah,
for sure.
With the slow burn, I think there's definitely like a lot to unpack, right? Like I think first of all, the contrast of all these characters and also the settings are just like immaculate, right? Where it's like right off the rip, like you said, you get Sister Barnes, who like is very like almost like this like punk version of like missionary, where like she is on the fence. You could tell like she could seemingly go one way or the other, and you really can't tell, even honestly, until like that scene that you described where you had left. You really still don't really get a good grip.
Yeah.
on it. She's like same thing with the other missionary, the other sister. Goody two shoes, book smart, and then as you kind of progress through that story, that book smart stuff really works against her, where it's kind of like in a dangerous street situation, like these are the rules, these are the laws. But like when you're faced with another character or like an enemy, an antagonist, if you will, that is seemingly willing to kind of like ignore all that and they're in real danger, she kind of has this like meltdown, like doesn't know how to react, right? So right off the rip, you get like this amazing contrast from these characters, the world they're in, like when the group of girls want to take a picture with them, and sister gets pants there or whatever, and it's like it's very clear that they're like living in a world that like they're not quote unquote like maybe respected fully, and then also on top of that they're also very different from each other, and then they meet Mr. Reed, who is just very different from everyone else. So the juxtaposition of all these characters off the rip was great. Like even though it was a slow burn the first 30 minutes, I thought they did a really good job of illustrating that there was a lot of diversity amongst all these characters, which made it work really well. And kind of like what Jack was saying about it all taking, place in one area, like it was a bottle episode of a TV show. I was pretty amazed that there was no strong B story. There was like, what was it, 2 scenes of the guy, what's his name? That plays Eric Foreman in that 70s show.
That was a crazy cameo. When he came to the door, I was like, dude, no way.
Yeah. Great. Like the B story, so to speak.
He's kind of looking for them.
Was that
for a
like,
little bit.
Yeah, it was like 45 seconds at the door or at the church, and then he left. And then it was like 45 seconds he was at the door. And then he came back and he's like, I feel bad if I didn't give you the book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, I was waiting for him to like find the bike, but obviously Mr. Reed,
Yeah.
And that out. He got the bikes and like the bike lock and stuff, but
Yeah.
I thought he was gonna, come back. That would have been a cool story.
That's interesting. That beeline story, I guess thinking back to it, like what was the point of that, do you guys think? Because it really seems like it served no purpose other than, I guess, for us as the audience to, I guess, have some hope that, oh, someone's gonna come and rescue these girls. But then obviously, that falls on its face.
Just like hands in the pants way, and you're just like shit. Like,
so if you guys think back to it, that beeline story with him, Eric Foreman's character, it almost feels like it doesn't.
I don't even think he has a name in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like it almost doesn't serve too much of a purpose, to me at least, other than to give the audience some hope. What do you guys think?
Yeah,
exactly.
I think I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think it's that, but probably just bow tying from like a writing perspective. Like they were like sitting there, I think it might be Sister Barnes that says it, like, we're like we're on this mission with like houses and addresses, like someone is going to come looking for us. So obviously, like, I think someone was writing it like, okay, we can't have too many loose ends. So it's like, just have this guy show up at the door for like 2 scenes to build some anticipation. But yeah, I mean, it didn't really serve much of a purpose other than just tying up the loose ends, which, I think as just like someone like all of us, like stories, like that was much appreciated. Like, I'm glad that they didn't like we didn't leave that movie like, how come no one went and looked for them? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, especially with the storm and all that stuff else that was going on, which was a nice touch, I thought.
Yeah, it made it more creepy.
Yeah, like no one is like actively like, it's not like a nice summer day and they're just like, oh, let's go to these like 4 locations these girls went to try to find them. Like guys like hustle and bustling through like the storm of the century, which I thought was great. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I did like the storm of the century part where it is it's like blizzard out in that, and I thought that was a nice touch. I do find it interesting how it felt like earlier in the first couple scenes where they're not in the house yet, it almost doesn't feel like winter. It feels like almost like fall or something. And then you cut to the night and it's a blizzard. So I don't know. I feel like they should have maybe done it so that it was the winter that the first scenes were in, if that makes sense. Because if you're just watching the first few scenes, them out and about in the town and stuff, I don't know. I wouldn't think it was winter necessarily, because I don't think there was like snow on the ground or anything like that. And then there's this big blizzard. So I don't know. That's just a small nitpick of mine that I noticed. So yeah, I don't know. Let's see. We got Kane in the chat. I've not seen Heretic, so this review is all spoilers.
Yeah,
this is a spoiler kind of review, guys.
It is, yeah.
Full warning, full disclosure.
Definitely watch it though. There's a lot of like twists and turns that we're not even probably going to cover. That
Needless to say, it's a ride for sure. Like you were just like there for the ride. It was nuts.
For sure. So what do you guys think of, I guess, Mr. Reed's message? Like, what is his message as far as religion goes? Because obviously he has a whole thing with the monopoly boards and saying each religion really is just a different iteration of the same story.
Yeah, that was such a weird way for them to kind of explain religion through.
Yeah, and then you had the
music and
the music too. I didn't expect to hear Radiohead during this movie.
Yeah, right. And he was singing that too. That was kind of funny. I like the part too where he did the Jar Jar Binks impression. I was like, "What the hell?" And he also said that was another iteration, I guess, of the story of of whatever. So I was trying to think about that. I'm like, does that make sense? Is Star Wars, can that be compared to Christianity and whatnot? I don't know. I would have to dive deeper into that, but so I don't know. What do you guys think his message was? That the religion, all the religions are just kind of BS, and the true religion is like a simulation. Like, what do you guys think?
You want to take it?
You can take it.
Yeah.
I think you
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think there's two lanes for this, right? Where like there is, the idea of like what Mr. Reed is trying to get across, and then what the movie is trying to get across, right? So I think there's like two diverse lanes there.
Sure.
Mr. Reed like throws a question up where he's like, basically like he's talking about, okay, like there's two sides of the story, right? Well, at least the way he was kind of proposing it, where he's like, there's one side where it's like God creates all this stuff, and then there's like stuff within this world that's bad. That's like chaos to live in. But then he's like, then there's this other side where maybe none of it's real, and then therefore that's also chaotic. So he's kind of like painting that picture with iteration that it's all just like you said, like kind of like one variation of every story that has come before it. Where I do think Mr. Reed's character, so to speak, misses the mark is I don't think that's like super black and white. Like there's obviously middle ground for like everybody, because everyone has their own beliefs. So his, it seemed like his iteration, no pun intended, for like his message that he was going for is, without spoiling the end, it just kind of seemed like I guess I can spoil the end, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, he was saying that like the only real true religion is control. So that was like his kind of idea, is like for locking them in the house, and then further like there's a few other like crazy things that go on. And his whole idea is that like religion seemingly is about control. But the reason I say there's two lanes, where like that's the kind of idea that Mr. Reed is seemingly trying to get across. The movie has like a different thing, because by the end of the movie, the way all these characters react to what he is like kind of, I guess, presenting here, there is like, it's all open for interpretation. Like you didn't walk out of the movie at the end like, oh, that's the message they were trying to convey. Like it was very open-ended, which I thought was like super tasteful. But to answer your question, Mr. Reed's character seemed to kind of like push this idea that religion was about control. And then at the end, the sister that remained, she was kind of just like rejecting that, being like, I believe what I believe, and like that's all that really matters, which I thought was, again, very tasteful. But then again, at the end of the movie, it seemed like the two guys that wrote it, their like message they were trying to get across wasn't, I don't want to say vague, but it was just open for interpretation. Like you didn't leave there like, oh yeah, that's like obviously what they were trying to say, which is just, again, like I think just a testament to how great their storytelling is, because you could feel strongly about religion one way or the next. Not that I would sit here and praise one thing or another, like to each their own, 100%. But you left being like, oh, that's like something I can kind of like cook in my head and just leave it open for interpretation, which is just, I thought was amazing in terms of storytelling.
Right. So I guess from what I gathered from that, so I guess the message they're trying to convey, the writers, is more open-ended, but it seems like maybe it's really, the right religion is whatever religion you believe in. That's that almost. Would you say that's fair?
I'd say some people would definitely leave thinking that for sure. You know what I mean? But I think it's all lens. It's all like, we obviously like films and stuff. So we're like over here being like super analytical.
Right.
But I think like someone that had a very like surface level idea of like what movies are would leave thinking something totally different. So yeah, I think you nailed it. Like it's all just kind of like whatever you think.
And I do like your point about Mr. Reed being kind of black and white, where he has this line where he says, either God created us and, we have a higher purpose and whatnot, or we're just a bunch of horny people on a floating rock going around space or whatever.
Right.
And there's really no gray area. That's something I noticed too, where it's like, in these types of situations, as far as, talking about religion and what people believe and whatnot, I feel like people that are religious tend to think in black and white terms, but in reality, it's really not black and white. There's a lot of gray area. So I do find it interesting that Mr. Reed, he thinks that it is black and white. That you either on one side of the camp, regardless of your religion, or you're on the other side of the camp where you're an atheist and you don't believe in any sort of religion. And then Sister Barnes kind of points out that even if you're on one side of the camp, that doesn't mean that one religion's right or the other's wrong. There is this kind of gray area that she kind of points out. So I don't know. I do find the movie's concepts around religion and everything like that interesting, and I don't know. It's hard to articulate, I guess you could say, right now. I should have taken some notes, and maybe usually that helps me if I take notes and then read it back or whatever. Kind of helps me gather my thoughts. But I don't know. I do like the concepts presented in the film overall, and I think it would almost benefit from a second viewing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially the second half, brother.
I know. Once it comes on streaming, I think I will rewatch it and just skip over that part.
I would have gave you a warning about the box cutter, but I didn't know.
Oh, what the heck, Jack, dude?
Yeah.
I thought we were friends, man. So yeah, I don't know. I guess overall, as far as the theme of the movie or what the writers are trying to convey, and like how you said, Nick, how there's really like two lanes, what Mr. Reed is trying to convey and then what the writers are trying to convey. And I do think, I don't know, because when I guess I have a question now. When I walked out, he was going on about like a simulation and how the thing in her, Sister Barnes's arm was like I don't know what, like some sort of robot thing or something.
Yeah, like a controlled device or some bullshit. Yeah.
So what was that? Like, did he believe that? Oh, it was all a simulation.
Not necessarily. I think the simulation was like foreshadowing for later him presenting the idea that it was about control, and seemingly that's kind of what I pieced together. But really, he was just trying to like. So this happened. It probably was like right when you left, but you know how right before he kind of got rid of Sister Barnes there, she turned to her, her friend there and was like, "You have to challenge his ideas. Like that's what's going to make him kind of do whatever." When she was trying to escape him after that simulation thing, she kind of like recalled, and I think she said it out loud, maybe to herself, like, "Okay, I have to challenge him, challenge his ideas." So that simulation talk further kind of like just like the conversation of like what that is and like what control is. And I guess my whole point to that is like it didn't not go anywhere, but it definitely didn't like nail a hard point. I feel like it was foreshadowing for the control. Probably just another way for them to reiterate ideas on like, again, like purpose and like, all that other shit they were discussing earlier. At least I didn't feel, maybe you did, but I didn't feel like it really like nailed the point, like
sure,
particularly hard or anything.
Now, what about the prophet being like resurrected? Does that ever come back in towards the ending?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You want to take that one? Or?
Prophet meaning like
girl
who's like
the lady who like eats the blueberry pie and dies and comes back. Is that like ever revealed? Like, is she actually a prophet that went to the other side and came back, or is that like like what Sister Barnes was saying, like it's some sort of magic trick?
Yeah. Well, spoiler alert. there's like a little
Spoiler.
cellar like under the table where like another prophet, like, well, first off, we don't even know. Towards the end in his basement, there's like a bunch of these like prophets just like in cages. Like one question I have about the film, like we don't really know why he just keeps these girls down there, like
Yeah.
or how they even got there. Like if they're, I don't know if they're all like, you know, Mormons that came to his door or whatever. But so
Yeah,
yeah,
I wonder.
they kind of do like an old like switcheroo of like the dead
Okay.
one, and then see again. I don't know if you walked out after this, but one of the sisters kind of sees that like the head was different. Like when she like died on the table, the head was like another way. So she's
Right.
like a different person or whatever, or she's still alive. But
Yeah, okay, I do remember that.
they switched them out.
Interesting.
So they're, I don't know. It was pretty cool.
For like, I guess whatever you want to call it, like context, but like that house, you can kind of tell in the beginning, but it's later revealed that there are like tunnels and like secret passageways through like the entirety of this home. Have you ever seen Barbarian by chance?
Yeah.
It's like that. Like everything is
Okay.
just kind of like interconnected. So later when like Jack said, when they find these people in these cages, and that's when he goes into the monologue about like religion is seemingly about control to him. You know what I mean? And like, I think that was kind of, again, like why he switched the bodies and did all this stuff. It's like, he's trying to get them to believe what he's proposing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
it all
yeah.
does like a 360.
Yeah, dude. I'm excited for you to see the second half because like it's a ride. You're just like, whoa! Like even with these spoilers we're giving you, there's still like a few things that you're gonna be like, I did not see this coming. Like really tasteful like twists and turns and probably in the third act. I mean, it's really great.
Okay. All right. Yeah, once it's on streaming, I'll you know, watch the rest of it. I'll suffer through it.
We'll live stream it together, brother.
Yeah, right.
I'll watch it the second time. It was great.
Yeah. I guess my other kind of question, just thinking about it, is like what you brought up. Where are these girls coming from that he just has in cages? Like, are they other Mormons that came to his door? Like, because he is in a secluded area, right? So I can't imagine he just naturally gets a lot of visitors, right?
Like that was my kind of guess. Again, like we don't really know why they're still locked up. Maybe that's the whole control thing he was talking about. But I don't know. Once people go into his house, they literally can't leave. He has like the locks, which is pretty cool. But
actually,
a little twist that they did.
Yeah, like presumably, I mean, that's a great point. Like with the locks in his house, like it's likely that like he is like taking people in more so than anything, like at the door.
Yeah.
Because that blocks cell phone service, that blocks like, you know, locks the entirety of the house.
Yeah,
like,
he was very adamant on the two girls like coming into his house.
Yeah.
Like right when they got to his porch, it started storming, which was, you know, crazy in itself. But
yeah. Also, the fact that he requested more information about that church,
right,
for knowing that somebody would get sent to come have that conversation. So I would assume, like you said, that they probably did just get like dropped in, you know, from the front door. And like, but
I feel like he needs to find like a different hobby or something. You know, like his hobby is abducting these girls and just ranting about religion.
Yeah,
like
it's crazy.
But again, like in the beginning of the movie, he's like such a cool character. You're kind of not like rooting for him, but you're like, what is he gonna do? Like he's like this charming guy. He's like really funny. He has like so much dialogue too, and he like does it really well.
Yeah,
like he says so much in the movie. But
from a perspective of like how well Hugh Grant's character is, like how well it was written, like as an audience.
He's a star of the movie.
Yeah, we were having this conversation when we left. Remember we were talking about like, this is going to sound so crazy, but even when he killed Sister Barnes, he still had that like the polarity of his character where it was like, you knew he was a dangerous guy, but then also like you said, he's like charming. He's got like this really like witty dialogue. Even after he killed Sister Barnes, you were still kind of sitting there like, is he going to nail this point home? And like, he's going to be the good guy. Like he was like still fooling me. Like well into the movie, like kidnapped these girls, like did all this like heinous stuff, but his character is so like, does he have a point here? Like you're waiting for this massive turn. And then again, it like slowly unravels once she starts figuring out like, oh, he switched the bodies. Oh, he's just a crazy person. Like, but I thought it was like incredible that he could like do all this awful stuff and just the small details he was doing, like mixing up Lou Gehrig disease with like blueberry disease, like the seemingly innocent sort of dialogue, or, you know, just like all these like really like odd things. Like I was watching an interview where they were talking about, I think it was the Book of Mormon, and he like mispronounced what the book is and they had to correct him. But then he had the huge Book of Mormon that he supposedly read through. So you never knew what he was doing. Like the polarity of him, his character was just like incredible. Even halfway through, I'm like, is he a good guy?
Yeah.
And he's like just an absolute psycho, but it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that goes to show how good the writing is, and then also Hugh Grant. You know, I mean, he nailed this part.
I couldn't imagine anyone else kind of being in that character.
Yeah.
So good on them.
Yeah, it's like his Adam Sandler kind of uncut gems moment. Like Luke, you said he's only been in these rom-coms, and then he's in this, and he's like incredible.
Yeah. A24 does a really good job of getting these kind of actors like out of there.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Hugh Grant too, I think he's a very well, I guess you'd say like disarming person, you know, like he's a very friendly presence about him almost, you know, especially in this film, the way he talks and comes off at the beginning, you know, he just seems like a sweet old dude, you know, who wants to talk about religion or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think the casting of his character was very well done. So I guess let's dive into the ending, because I'm curious about that. And we haven't really talked exactly about what happens. So I guess if one of you guys want to give me the cliff notes of what happens at the end.
I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to think of what happened after you left.
You left, yeah. We could kind of probably just summarize that.
Yeah.
So you left when the box cutter thing happened.
Yeah.
She was trying to escape, challenged him some more, like whatever, you know. And she starts to really, I think that conversation that she had with Sister Barnes really started to kind of like resonate with her, where she's like, this is how I can quote unquote like I guess like beat this guy at his own game, is like challenging all his beliefs to see if he'll like eventually hit a dead end. And that's when she started to propose the idea that like the body was different and all these other things. They find this hatch under the table, like the main table, and she challenges him again, like, you know, like, oh, is the real body, the dead body down there? And he's like, well, I don't know. You got to find out. You got to see for yourself. Again, like kind of emphasizing that idea about religion and like there being black and white, and people needing to really like kind of see for themselves, I guess. I don't know. Like there's a lot of that sort of conversation. She goes down there, and then, I mean, it just turns into barbarian. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The house unravels. They find the bike lock on like the last door. She unlocks it. There's those, what I think maybe some other, you know, people that came to his door that he kind of captured. They're all like alive. There's a scene of him like giving them water and stuff. They're like trapped in like dog cages, but
yeah, like super weak.
Yeah,
like real feeble people. Like it's like they've been there for years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so interesting, and maybe that makes them so they're more willing to like play his game, essentially. You know, go out there with a blueberry pie and
yeah, they do literally play his game. Like they're kind of controlled, like you said earlier in the movie. But
yeah.
So, do you think his goal was to essentially have Sister Baxton be a new prophet? You know, like keep her in a cage, and or like, what do you think?
Probably because she was so, like you said, Luke, she's like 100% in. Versus, I think the reason he killed Sister Barnes was like she was challenging him, and while the other sister was challenging him, like you said, Barnes was on the fence. He like didn't know what she was really believing and what not. Even through small like illustrations in the movie where like the Goody Two Shoes sister, forgive me for not remembering her name, but she was like even like mocking like South Park. She's like, they make fun of us on those shows. And the other girl, Sister Barnes is like, have you heard some of the music? Like, it's pretty funny. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, so you just like couldn't tell, right? So like once she was eliminated, you almost felt like he was trying to pitch his idea to her because she bought into everything. And I hate using that term bought in because again, like I'm not here to discuss religion, to each their own, of course. But she was so like 110% into her side that it's almost like he was like, okay, all or nothing. Again, another callback to his black and white conversation. Like we're either here, there's a higher purpose, or we're like floating on a space rock. And it's like maybe he thought because she was 110 in that he could like switch her to the other side and she would be 110, almost like building his own religion, like with these people. Seemingly.
Yeah, you don't really know like what religion he follows either. I don't think he follows really any of them.
Yeah,
maybe just little bits and pieces. But
it's interesting because I feel like he said this in the movie that they're essentially kind of just salesmen, the missionaries, right? They're just going to house trying to sell their belief. But if you flip it on its head, I mean, he's essentially trying to sell his religion, whatever it is, or whatever he believes or his concepts, to people coming to his door. So he's really no better than them, where I feel like he is definitely kind of talking down to them at times, saying like, essentially, it's stupid to buy into this religion that you believe just because you were born in a place. And that's how you were brought up. You haven't really explored other religions and what else is out there to figure out what you truly believe. But I don't know. So I do find it interesting that he's essentially doing what they were doing too, just in a different way, just being a salesman, selling whatever his messed up ideologies are.
Right.
So I don't know.
I like that because like, again, like a second ago when I said like bought in, I was like, I don't like that term, but the way that you kind of just described it, like I realized that I'm just like pulling that from the film. Like, he does kind of emphasize like you guys bought into this, he says some sort of line or he's basically emphasizing that idea. Again, not here to discuss religion, teach their own, but I do like the idea that he is presenting to them where he's like, you guys are like buying into this, but he's also simultaneously trying to sell them on his own idea, which this is kind of like probably like one of the major concepts, but like he's looking at his idea as objective. Like this is like the clear cut, obvious way, but it's like, that's not true because other people go around with their own religion and they feel the same way, and it's kind of all this like really strange, like hamster wheel stuff that they're like, he's like, I'm not buying what you're selling, but simultaneously trying to sell them something else. And maybe that's tactful. Like maybe that's a tactic of his, maybe it's strategic, but you're right. Like, it's like, he's doing the same thing to them, whether that's intentional or not. Like, I don't really know, but I think that's what's so cool about this movie. It just opens up dialogue, not even to talk about religion, but just like belief systems. You know what I mean? Like whether it's groupthink, going back to like the Salem witch trials, I'm sure you're familiar with that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You look at that, anyone could objectively think like, oh, this is awful. Like they like hanged these poor people and it was all this stuff. You're like, why would they celebrate that every year? Why is that such a big thing in the town? The town uses that to illustrate the idea of groupthink and why it's so bad, like in American history, like why you shouldn't like, fall into these crazy belief systems without checking for yourself. And the movie does another, again, like it's not, I don't think it's to discuss religion, which I'm not interested in discussing. It's more about these belief systems and like, what do you believe? And like, again, the ending just makes it seem like it's open for interpretation, but also it's kind of like, yeah, like believe what you want. Like that's cool. And I thought that was like so tasteful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the film does a good job of illustrating belief systems and almost bringing up the question, like, why do you believe in something? Is it because you explored it on your own, or were you, like I said, kind of born into this, where your upbringing, you were surrounded by this religion and whatnot, therefore you just believe it. So I do find that pretty interesting and thought-provoking. I do have a question too. Mr. Reed, before they go down into the dungeon or whatever, he says he's going to reveal the truth, and that that it's going to almost make you want to die. What is that truth that he says, like, oh yeah, you may want to die after you hear it? Or is that just kind of almost like snake oil, where there really is nothing?
Now I'm thinking about it, maybe it is snake oil. I don't know. What do you think?
Probably just like, I don't know, like, see, that's where it's so difficult, because I'm wondering if he's, again, foreshadowing that idea of like he's going to pose the idea later that religion is about control. And it's hard for me to say, like, where he kind of presents that idea again earlier, where he's like, it might make you want to die. It's like, maybe the girl that's all in would be so shocked that she would feel that way. But again, with Sister Barnes being like, she plays devil's advocate, which is like a huge thing for this movie, this character that is like plays both ends, where she's street smart and you can't really tell what she believes halfway through. So I don't know. It didn't really, I don't know. Maybe thinking out loud, it could be when he poses the idea that the prophet goes to the other side.
Yeah.
He tells one of the sisters, or both of them, he's like, you guys have the opportunity to go to the other side. So maybe when he said it might make you want to die, that's what he was referring to. Like, it might make you want to like die to the other side and then come back, because I'm showing you it's whatever. And that's when Sister Barnes calls out, like, I've been trying to think about how you're going to try to make us dying our idea. You know what I mean? Which was like, again, it was like there were so many great ideas and thoughts and just plain old dialogue in this movie that I was like, now that we're kind of dissecting it, I'm like, man, these guys just do like great work. Like, what an incredible film, for real. But yeah, that would be my guess.
I think I think you've seen this part. It's a little bit in the beginning, but like the two doors that they kind of pick to go down, I thought that was super cool. Like the belief, disbelief, how they were so like divided on it.
Yeah. Black and
Do you remember that part?
Yeah. And how they, like, with the one girl who, Sister Baxton, who was kind of the, the goody two shoes, the one who's like all in on the morning.
Like all in, like, I believe, so I'm going through this door, and then.
Yeah, well, she goes to the disbelief door because she thinks, oh, this is going to get us out of the situation.
Yeah,
you know, she's just going to do whatever this guy wants, and then they're going to be able to leave, right? Which is obviously not the case. And then the other sister, Sister Barnes, she kind of sees through his games, where she realizes, like, okay, wait, no, I think maybe we do have to kind of like play his game in order to get out. And so she goes, through the belief door. And it's interesting too, where I feel like those both just lead to the same place. No,
right? Yeah.
So I don't know. I found
mind games.
Well, what's that?
Just mind games and seeing
a
little bit of more what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Probably too, like when he shows them the prophet, like, that the door thing kind of leading to that might have like prompted some predisposed ideas, at least at the time when they were like, facing the prophet, on what they believe and what they don't believe. You know what I mean? Again, it's such a roller coaster. Like, the more we talk about it, the more I'm like putting two and two together, and like, man, those guys are just, again, great writers. But I don't know. There was, like Jack said, there's just a ton of mind games, and it's fun because, again, they paint that juxtaposition of all these characters so well, where it's like, Mr. Reed's like this, Sister Barnes is like this, the other sister is, kind of over here. But then, like, you're thinking as an audience member, but also you're thinking in a different lane as like the writers that are like creating this whole thing. And it's like there's so many perspectives, and even what I'm pitching is black and white, because everyone that watches it has their own idea of what it means. And like, I think that's just, again, the act of good storytelling.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I don't know. I mean, I don't really have anything else to add, I feel like, to the film. What do you guys think? Do you have anything else to say about the film? Any points that you want to make sure we touch on?
Maybe just the last scene of the film.
It was interesting.
Where, spoiler, Sister Baxton she escapes. She kills Mr. Reed. She escapes. And she's kind of just like bleeding out, trying to like, call. I think she calls 911, or tries to at least.
Yeah.
And kind of a callback. She said she like wants to like turn to a butterfly when she dies or whatever, and then the butterfly kind of like lands on her hand in the movies goes to black. So
Oh, so it's up in the air whether she lives or dies.
right, yeah. So I think that was just kind of the last point. Maybe what you've gotten so far, Luke. Maybe what do you think kind of happens there?
I mean, I would say I would think she dies.
Yeah.
Especially with the butterfly coming and landing on her hand or whatever. I think that's definitely just a callback.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think she dies at the end for sure.
It's also hard to tell too, because the butterfly thing, Luke, I'm trying to remember when you left, like in where this is in the film. But yeah, she mentions the butterfly thing, and then it happens at the end. There's also a conversation they have. And again, Luke, I think you nailed it when you said I think a second watch through would really benefit us. But they're talking about some ideology that has to the term of the ideology has to do with butterfly. Because do you remember they're having that conversation and she's like, oh, the butterfly effect, and he's like, oh, that's easily misconstrued with what I'm talking about. He's basically pointing out like another ideology that has the term butterfly in it, which I had never heard of.
That. Yeah.
And then like again, therefore, it's like this triple entendre where it's like it's at the end. She mentions it halfway through the film, and then they're discussing this idea. I wish I knew what it was, but next time you watch it, if I'm sure we'll all give it a rewatch. That could very well have something to do with like how the ending played out, but. Mm-hmm. Again, man, like they're just so good at like tying all these things together, and yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, I don't really know what to make of that yet until I research that last part.
Yeah.
Interesting. I guess we could interpret it as the butterfly being either Mr. Reed or Sister Baxton, right? Because Sister Barnes. When Sister Baxton's talking about how she wants to be a butterfly, she wants to land on the people she loves. They're right on their hands to know it's not. So we could say, okay, well maybe that's Sister Barnes, as a butterfly, landing on Sister Baxton's hand to show that she's there or whatever. There's the other side, or you almost could interpret that as Mr. Reed. Maybe he's almost like mocking her in a weird way.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Probably like that, but that's
a really cool interpretation. I didn't think of that either.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking it could be, you could interpret it as Mr. Reed being reincarnated as the butterfly, and him going to land on her hand. It almost is like mocking her about her belief, but then it's almost like, well, how is he really mocking her if that's what she wants when she dies, to be turned into a butterfly, and Mr. Reed is now the butterfly going to land on her hand, then he's just saying like, oh yeah, there is an afterlife and you can be a butterfly if you want. So I don't know.
Yeah. There's a lot of other imagery too in the beginning. Remember, there's all the moth traps and the moth trying to like get through the window and all that kind of stuff. And then later it's the butterfly. I don't know. There's like so much to unpack, which is definitely cool. But yeah, that's an interesting take. I never thought of that, Luke.
Yeah. So I don't know. Well, I guess that's all I have for the ending. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else to add?
Honestly, the only comment I'll make on it, like I think, I've kind of dissected it enough, I think, personally, but I will say that was like a sleeper movie. Like, like that easily sneaked. That's probably like my 5th favorite movie this year. And it just came kind of out of left field. We're like, oh, let's just go see it. We were excited for it. But it was like exceeded my expectations. Again, no B story. It's kind of like breaking all these rules. No definitive ending. And I still left like, that was fun. Like I just enjoyed watching that and like just trying to figure out what was going to happen next, only to be pleasantly surprised when I was wrong each time, because it just kept getting even crazier. So that was awesome. But I loved it. It was really worth the watch, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely a good film. It makes you think. Right. And I think you're right. I think conventionally speaking, from, writing a film, it definitely does do unconventional things to kind of keep you on your toes. Yeah. So I do think it's a very well-written film. Nick, I know you're into screenwriting and stuff. I would say maybe you should read the script, the screenplay of it. And I'm sure you've read a bunch of screenplays already and whatnot. And
I'd be interested to see what they did with this. You know what I mean? And
it'll be a long one. I know that they're just talking talking and
They
talking.
were yapping, brother.
Which
Like, you know, there's
like-
definitely not like I'm thinking of the action blocks in the scenes. Like Mr. Reed walks over and picks up a Monopoly game, and then it's
And
like
he just
2.5
goes
pages
on.
of dialogue,
Yeah.
and then it's like he
Yeah.
grabs another board game. It's just like more dialogue. It was like it would definitely be long as hell for sure.
Yeah, I would be interested in reading that screenplay too, honestly, because when I took screenwriting classes in college and whatnot, you know, we would read a lot of screenplays to, you know, see how they're written, see how they're structured and whatnot, and it can help as a writer, you know, write your own screenplay. So I would be interested in reading that and seeing how, you know, it's structured. And you're right. You know, I feel like there are probably pages of just dialogue in that screenplay, and they tell you as a screenwriter really not to do that because, you know, it just doesn't flow that well. But I do think it works in this case, you know.
Yeah. I think with screenwriting too, like there's definitely like a blueprint industry sort of way of doing it. Not that I'm like a pro by any means, but it's like all these movies that are really getting like this major recognition are just breaking the mold like entirely. You know what I mean? Have you seen X or any of those films? Or
I watched X recently. Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm trying to remember. I was making videos then because I probably would have made a video on it, just talking about it. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought at times actually it was a little boring. It was almost a bit of a slow burn, but once it picked up, it really picked up. You know, like the third act. I thought that third act was really a lot of fun.
I totally agree, and I bring that up to say that in Pearl, you know, its predecessor there, which ironically I believe came out after, right, as the prequel. Yeah. There's like a lot of that, like same stuff, like just these monologues that are just like gorgeous, but they're like 4 minutes.
Yeah,
and
5 minute, like
oh my God.
One camera. Doesn't.
Again, breaking rules, but just like nailing it. So I say all that to say I'm no pro, but it's almost like the more you read, the more people are just like doing whatever the hell they want. And if it works, it works, you know?
For sure. And that's kind of, when I was taking screenwriting classes and whatnot, that's something I kind of picked up on is, well, you know, like for the assignments and stuff, we had to kind of follow that structure. But, you know, like watching other films and whatnot, like it can be important to kind of break that structure at times, you know, if it makes sense for the plot of the story. And I feel like here there's definitely a lot of times where that quote unquote the normal structure of a film is broken, but I feel like it works.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
So I don't know, Nick. So you are actively writing, right? You like to write screenplays and whatnot.
Yeah, as much as I can.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I would love to read some of your stuff.
Dude, anytime. I got something in the works right now that we chat, you know, behind the scenes for sure. But
nice.
Yeah, I think you'll have something cool that you guys will be able to check out. So
sweet. All right. Well, listen, I think let's wrap it up. We've almost gone for an hour now. I've enjoyed this discussion, and we do some more in the future, and maybe we can do another one on the Heretic after we all rewatch it, and after I finish it, we can
Heretic Part 2. Just like Luke watches Heretic Part 2. Just a lot.
Oh my goodness! But all right, listen.
Just you watch the second half during the live stream. Like we're just watching you watch it.
That'd be funny. Oh my goodness! All right. Yeah, I think.
We end it with like a rating, like what we thought. I give it like a solid 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Okay.
Yeah.
I would give it. I'm not going to rate it because I haven't finished it.
Yeah, it's undisclosed.
Undisclosed. I did enjoy it though. I will say that. If you watch this stream and you have any interest in watching it, I would say go check it out for sure. Yeah. What about you, Nick? What would you give it?
I'd like thoroughly align with Jack. Like, you know, I think in a year span, you would give a 5 out of 5 to like a personal fave movie, maybe a 1 or 2. But yeah, like 4 out of 5, it broke my top 5 for sure. Like, that was great. Recommend. See it with a group of people. It's fun to talk about after. Like, super fun to dissect. You know what I mean? So it was great. Yeah.
All right, we got Kane, informative stream and interesting perspectives from the movies. Thank you, Kane. Glad you could come. And then we got Cyclotron. We're just about to end. So You'll have to catch us next time. But yeah, all right, guys. Well, thanks for joining me. I enjoyed this discussion, and yeah, we'll have to do more of these. All right.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
Appreciate you having us, Luke.
All right. Take care, guys.